later in the episode.
I mean, it would be a good trial, for the barn, won't it? See, like how it works and like.
Yeah, that would be an edge case where it would be 100% useful because you take this wind generator, you put it in the barn. Now you can string the lights instead of running power from the house out to the barn. You could just run it off the wind. The biggest problem with it, though, with like something like that, is the fact that you need a battery, and batteries go bad, and you have to replace them.
All these fucking billionaires that own these car companies never even thought about coming out with solar power cars. Fucking idiots.
I mean, they have actually.
What?
The company I'm looking at is Aptera, but let's talk about stuff like that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
I'm CRollur.
And I'm Willy.
You're watching our podcast. We want to talk about like alternative energies and like alternative energy sources, like things that aren't like fossil fuels, like coal and natural gas and petroleum and all that other stuff. It's interesting that this whole thing got started up because I was thinking about the solar car that Aptera is making. So far, it's in like its second prototype phase, I believe. The problem I was seeing a problem with this car, with their initial like prototype, like it was going up a hill and it was struggling with it, but it was probably because it was thermal throttling because it was overheating. But I find it interesting to have a car that can run on solar, but at the same time, that's not going to work for everybody, you know?
No, it just depends on where you live at, depending on the climate.
And how far you have to drive.
Can you imagine you living in the farthest northern area of Canada and having to rely on solar power cars? I don't think
I mean, if you go to certain parts of Alaska and stuff, you literally could have like 40 days of like sun and then 40 days of no sun. So I'm not sure how that would work.
Well, the problem with solar too,
like
I know I didn't mean to cut you off, but the problem with solar, it doesn't get 100% of the solar light into that battery.
No, they're in general, solar panels are only so effective, like 20 to 40% effective.
Yeah, something like that, and they wear and tear over years.
But the car itself, it's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's good for everybody. If you're gonna go with like an electric car, the good thing about it is that it does have a plug-in, but its solar range is only 40 miles, which isn't good for everybody. You will literally have to plug your car in for it to work for a lot of people, that, especially in rural areas. They say that a lot of people drive less than 20 miles a day, but some people are driving
different towns, different cities to get to work and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't really hurt my feelings. I only live like 8 miles from work, so.
Yeah. That's actually why I'm considering an electric vehicle. But I'm also looking at it and I'm like, is the price worth it? Because that's a lot of money for a car, you know?
Yeah, but you travel a lot too, right? Let's say you take your car to the airport, right?
Well, I don't necessarily. I only take the only times I travel is like when I'm on vacation. Normally,
that's what I mean. Like when you take your electric solar powered car to the airport, you come back and realize that it was like heavy snow.
If I have to go to an airport, I'm getting dropped off. That's all there is to that. It's interesting about these solar cars, that like the idea of a solar car. It got me thinking about how redundant certain solar technologies are, because obviously a solar car would not be as good in this environment because during the winter we get a lot less light than we do during the summer. And it got me thinking, like, what about like a solar powered flashlight? Like that is a thing that exists.
Yep.
And as redundant as it is, you would think, well, obviously you need a flashlight in the dark. It ain't going to work, but it just charges batteries. But ridiculously, it's still ridiculous because you have to remember to charge your flashlight during the day when there are other solutions. They got that one that reminds me of a shake weight, where if you like shake it up and down, it charges a battery that like floats with a coil that's inside of it.
Well, that's kind of like the same concept of the crank flashlight.
Yeah, and they have crank flashlights.
And those are the first ones that came out was the crank flashlights.
Do you have any?
No, I don't have any, but I'm going to order some.
They're interesting because you like crank them up and they charge. Like you don't even have to buy batteries for them.
No, it's a built-in battery, but the problem is once that battery goes out, to even use that flashlight anymore, you have to keep cranking it just to have a light. Then when you stop cranking, the battery's not holding the charge.
Yeah, I mean you can replace those batteries.
Yeah,
They're just
can.
just a pain in the ass. And I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with this, but literally it is cheaper to just buy a new one than it is to replace that battery.
Yeah, but the problem is too. You were talking about that solar power car.
Yeah.
So the thing is, like, even though you don't, it's solar powered, but you still had to replace the batteries after so many years, and the batteries are probably a lot more than just buying, a regular car battery what you buy now for your gas car.
That is a thing that I've been hearing from a lot of people who are a little iffy. Like the people who are iffy about buying cars, a lot of people will literally bring up the idea of the fact that the battery is going to have to be changed eventually. What do you do when it is?
Yeah, I mean they dealt with that with the hybrid cars because the batteries cost more to replace than just a regular car battery.
So that's one thing. I think the trade in thing where people only like lease cars is probably where we're heading if we go with electric because
I didn't think about that, the whole leasing. That's smart though.
Because I mean, you buy an electric vehicle, you own it. If the battery stops working,
you pay for it.
Yeah,
that is kind of cool concept. Like if they actually brought these solar power cars just for like lease and not buying, I would probably jump on that bandwagon. Like if I only need to drive like 3 miles, 5 miles, go to the store, I'll be like, I'll just take the solar powered car.
I think that is the foundation for how electric cars probably should operate, so that when that battery does go bad, they could take it back and recycle it or and stuff like that. Like recycle it and break it down into components and use those components in future batteries, That would also help the initiative for waste, because you don't want to just unload your battery somewhere and have them just having that lithium cell battery somewhere in a landfill somewhere.
Now, I was reading something about, like we're talking about solar power, right?
Yeah.
With cars and stuff. But I was reading something this morning where, like, you can't predict, like, how hard the solar or the protons of the solar hit the actual, I don't know what to call it, the actual frame itself. But it can actually like hit it so hard that it can like stop a connection on the in the panel itself, because it'll cause like a hole where it's not like actually routing the way it should.
I mean, that is a fault in the system, but most solar panels I think are designed in a way to expect as much of that as possible. But when it comes down to a wear and tear happen, that eventually is what, because there's no actual moving parts in a solar panel. It is literally just photons moving through the panel, electrons and photons, and that is wear and tear that happens. That's why there's a lifespan on solar panels.
Yeah.
So but a lot of people say that by the time that the solar panel will pay for itself, it's already time to throw it away, which is actually untrue of a lot of modern solar panels. We're getting to the point where it's 4 years. And there's a 30-year lifespan on a solar panel. So for most of that solar panel's lifespan, it's net positive.
Do you have a picture of the prototype?
Yes, I do.
Is it like a complete frame or a complete body with solar panels, or is it just like?
I can show you that.
Right, it is that whole top part is solar.
Yeah, like solar panels across the hood, solar panels across the roof.
So when the time comes when your solar panel goes out, you would if you bought the car, you would have to replace that whole entire.
I mean, how long do you own cars? Realistically, how long do you own them? I think most people, by the time the solar panels go bad, the battery's going to go bad before the solar panels do.
I'm just saying, like, let's say like you only drive the car like 8 miles a day, right? And you get only like maybe like let's say you get like 10,000 miles in 1 year, right?
Yeah.
You would have to replace a solar panel when it has 40,000 miles on the car because its panels went out.
Sure, in that particular case, but on the other hand, I mean, most people first of all, most people don't hold on to cars that long,
right?
And those that do are restoring cars to begin with.
I mean, how long you hold on your cars, don't you?
For quite a while, but at the same time, when parts start going bad, there's a point where I have to call it and send that car to a junkyard. Yeah. You want the parts off my car, and you go to the junkyard and pull it off. Like, I will get a new car eventually. I'm not one to sit there and
try to fix it.
Yeah, like I'll fix the suspension.
It just depends on the person, like me personally. I trade my cars in all the time. Once I pay them off, I trade them in and I get a new car.
Yeah, like that's how a lot of people do it. But even then, like I got my car secondhand from my uncle. It's still only like 10 years old.
Now, if they can make one of them that can pull like 11,000 pounds, I would jump on that bandwagon with the whole solar power.
I don't know about solar power for that one, but electric vehicles, they are working on hauler trucks.
I mean, Ford did that. They were working on electric trucks, but they had to discontinue it because the batteries are catching on fire.
Probably overheating from putting too much stress on it. I don't know, because that's the problem with electrical components is that they get hot.
Yeah, they get overused. It's not like with gas, you got the coolant system to cool it down.
That's actually what they did to this car when they went to the second one. They put a freaking cooler on the front of the car to cool it off.
Like fans or what?
Like a radiator.
Oh, they did?
You see like this front part? They actually put a radiator up in the front of it.
Okay.
Like a regular car has.
Okay.
To cool off the components. It runs like a lot like an AIO coolant like in a computer where it sends all the heat to the front and cools it off through heat pipes and a radiator and stuff.
So this might actually be the future.
It might be.
If they can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this. The design is so concept car-ish. It's got three wheels, one in the back, and it's got this egg shape, round shape. But then again, they're trying to keep it aerodynamic to get as little drag as possible and all that other stuff. Solar power in general is a great alternative energy. And there are lots of places where we get solar power where there's nothing there. The only problem is they're not in the U.S. Well, I guess there are some places because there's a lot of places that are making solar like solar fields.
It depends on where you live in the
But
US.
there's entire deserts out there where we could put these panels. My question is, how are we getting the energy from these places to where we need them? Okay. That's the problem I get is because a lot of people are like, well, if you just fill the desert with solar panels, I'm like, yeah, but
you still have to get a line to put it somewhere.
Yeah,
I mean that's kind of like like me and you were talking earlier about the whole the whole flotation energy thing.
Oh, the wave technology.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. How can you get that if you live in an area that's a desert?
Or how can you get that anywhere that's not on the ocean?
We might be able to get it being in Ohio by the lakes, but it's gonna be that most people around the lakes are gonna get the energy before we do.
I think anything that slows down the emissions from fossil fuels is probably a good thing, but you also have to take into consideration like the downsides of it, like the waste, the production, and all that other stuff. But when you look at the actual statistics of it, it does kind of outweigh the drawbacks. It's just that we have to make sure that everything's being done as efficiently as possible. From the production of it to the actual solar panels and wind farms and stuff like that to the waste when these things go bad.
And you know how they're putting like solar panels on like houses and stuff?
Yeah.
Power. I think a lot of people are pushing away from doing that because they know like if they have electricity, they have 24/7, energy, right? Unless your power goes out. But with solar, you have to rely on how much charge you have on that battery to power your house.
Yeah. And here's the thing with that. And I've talked to my dad about this, and he's talked to people with wind generators and stuff. There is actually a limit to how much power you can produce out of that. And a lot of it is, it's shocking where the limit is. The limit is you can run your house on it.
You can.
Because you cannot sell the energy back. There are people with wind generators, and they've literally said that they shut theirs down because after so much energy is put back in, the electric companies will not buy it. They're producing more than they need.
And it's going to probably overload like, the batteries and everything too.
Well, we're currently in a system that's set to incentivize burning of fossil fuels. That's why the energy companies won't buy it back.
And it's going to be a long time till
there's a certain amount that they'll take, and after that, they won't buy any more back. And it's pointless to have a wind generator.
Yeah.
This was one of my dad's things. Is like he is fascinated by wind generators, and he's got one He's got like one that's disassembled and one that he wants to put up on the top of the house, which I think is kind of funny. Imagine a 2-story house with a wind generator on top of it.
I was kind of thinking that rooster that spins, that says like north and south, that's what I was like thinking.
Yeah, but he's got that. And he wants to put it up because he doesn't want to put an actual pole up. So he wants to put it on top of the house.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, I think it'd be better on the barn.
Probably.
Well, unfortunately, that does nothing for the house.
I mean, it would be a good trial, for the barn, won't it? See, like how it works and like.
Yeah, that would be an edge case where it would be 100% useful because you take this wind generator, you put it in the barn. Now you can string the lights instead of running power from the house out to the barn. You could just run it off the wind. The biggest problem with it, though, with like something like that, is the fact that you need a battery, and batteries go bad, and you have to replace them.
Yeah, because right now a lot of places are hiring for windmill technicians, and the problem is with this job, like a lot of people don't realize how tall those windmills actually are. I mean, you see them in the distance, but once you actually get up to them, they're stories high, and you actually got.
They're really big.
Yeah, you have to climb a ladder just to get up into where you have to go. I watched a whole entire video about like people that worked on those windmills. And they actually had to wear like things on their legs to help them climb, because eventually your legs get tired from that climbing and your arms does too. So you have to wear like an actual like kind of like a climber outfit.
I've also seen a job and it's not just windmills. There are like those huge towers where they have like lights on top of them so that planes don't hit them. That's a job too. And they get paid a lot to change one fucking light bulb. You see like the body cam footage from some of these people, like they're literally climbing up into the clouds. Like some of these towers are so tall that when you get up there, you're looking down on the earth through the clouds. And they change the lights out so that the planes don't run into them. I think wind power is probably one of the easier ones to implement, and it's actually more efficient than solar as far as how much energy is generated off of the wind versus off of the solar power. Like
it just depends on like how we're saying. It depends on where you live. Like if you live in like the safari, where it's like dry and no wind and it's like constantly humid, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I think around here, I've seen a lot of them around here, though.
It just depends. Like what's best for where you live at is what is best for what energy source you should use. Like, with windmills, it'll be all right over here because we get a lot of winds. You
know what I'm surprised I haven't seen? Like you got dams that are basically like taking up rivers and blocking them off and stuff and using the power from that. But what I haven't seen is people just doing the old water mill thing.
Well, yeah, I was actually.
But instead of taking it into a mill, turning it into a generator, because a lot of the water mills were actually made to turn that rotation into like grinding down of like wheat and stuff into like flour.
Now you can use it to like actually make energy.
That's actually the difference in a windmill and a wind generator. The biggest thing is its purpose, but its design is also inclusive, is also kind of around that. Like a windmill isn't necessarily designed to capture as much wind power as a wind generator is, because the generator's got to take a lot of torque to get that power going.
I mean, there's days like where, like with the windmills, there'll be days where there's like, like maybe like 3 mile per hour winds, and it's going to take a long time for that thing to spin,
Yeah, a lot of times, that's one of the things is on a day that's not windy, a lot of those things aren't working.
Yeah, you have to actually rely on Mother Nature to get your energy source. It's like
they design it that way on purpose so that when there is high winds, they don't just blow into pieces from how fast they're spinning. I've also seen people design them where the blades tilt to reduce the amount. Like the faster it goes, the more the blade tilts so that it takes in less wind.
I don't know, with all these like other sources of energy, I feel like they're more of a should be more of a backup plan.
Ocean-based powers are in my experience relatively new. These are things that I have not heard of until somewhat recently. things like wave power and tidal power.
I like that, but you have to live by that area.
Yeah. Now, you do know what tidal power is, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a wind turbine under the water, and it works by the water going in and out.
Yeah, it's like the more it moves, the more energy gets produced.
Yeah, whereas the wave power actually uses the up and down motions of the wave to drive it.
You know what? If they actually, what's that on one current called, like over in like the Caribbean? You know, like Finding Nemo and stuff.
Oh, I am not sure.
You know what I'm talking about? That current. Can you imagine if they put something in there and pick up the energy from that shit?
That would be a good idea, except I think you got to worry about the environmental impact of just dropping something in there.
Because there's smacking against it or something.
Yeah, that's one of the things that you have to worry about with some of these ocean-based technologies is the impact on the actual environment. That's why I'm pretty sure dams have like a path that goes around them so the fish can migrate around the dam.
But a lot of places, you know, different states are trying to eliminate, you know, having dams too, right?
I mean, some people that don't understand how dams work probably think they're bad.
Then some people are against the wind farms, you know, because they're like, oh, bird's going to run into those blades.
Now, speaking of some of the alternative energies, I've heard a lot of people talk about nuclear energy as an alternative. And although the production...
You still need water.
Yeah, but although the actual production of electricity based on that is absolutely clean because it's literally just a steam generator off of like the heat produced from fission.
Yeah.
The byproduct after the fission is done is still a problem that we have to deal with. Because uranium is not a good chemical to be just dumping anywhere, you know?
It actually changes the what's it called? Changes the body where when you reproduce it comes out like mutants and shit, right?
I mean, I don't know how true that is. I know that that nuclear radiation
change your DNA. That's what I meant.
I know radiation can definitely cause harm. I don't know if mutation is the thing or not. I mean, I've heard the stories of like three-eyed frogs and shit, but I don't know if that's actually true.
I was like kind of like thinking about the Simpsons movie, you know, when they, you know, fucked up the lake, you know.
Yeah.
Then, you know, you got that fucking squirrel with like fucking like 12 eyes. Then Bart was like, dab, 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 dab. I feel like if they do have nuclear waste and there's a river, because you need water to help with, you know, a nuclear power plant. And I feel like they would just dump the shit right back in there.
The water is used in
slowing down the fission process.
No, actually that's the control rods that do that.
Oh.
The water is literally you use the heat from the fusion and you turn it into steam, and the steam turns like the turbines. What you see coming off of the towers, off the cooling towers, is literally steam. A lot of people think it's smoke. It's steam. I can't believe the amount of people that I've had to tell that to. It honestly amazes me that people think that the nuclear power plant is producing heavy smoke.
Oh, they don't know what they're talking about.
It's literally steam from.
So of all the resource that we're talking about, like which one? Like, can you imagine if you had like a nuclear powered car?
I mean, they have nuclear subs.
Yeah, I know they got nuclear subs. They can actually do a nuclear powered car.
I don't think. Could you imagine what would happen to a nuclear powered car if they got into a crash, though?
Oh yeah, it's gonna blow up a whole town.
It's bad enough that we have the fear of it near us. All my life, I can't say I've been waiting for it, but I've been leery of that siren to go off. Because, you know, nobody's making it out. There's no way you're traveling fast enough to bypass that radiation if it ever does fail.
Well, at least it'll be quick. Now, one thing I want to talk about, too, is generators. You got the crank generators. You got the battery-operated generators. You got solar-powered generators.
Wait. I feel like one of those is already a flaw. Battery-operated generator.
Yeah. It's like the ones that you use for your appliances, like if your power goes out.
That's just a backup battery. That's not
not
a generator.
They consider it a generator, but it's just a backup battery. That's all it is.
That's not a generator. Like a gas generator, solar generator, crank generator.
Crank generator. My buddy actually had a car, and he his battery went out, and he was like, "Yeah, fuck replacing battery," so he bought a crank one. So what he would do is he'll charge his battery just enough for the car to start. Then he'll let the alternator charge it, even though it's not holding the charge, but it was enough for him to get to work. And he would do that every fucking day.
That is. I don't know what to say to that. That's just
stupid. I know.
You're just prolonging the inevitable, but I guess you're getting by if you're doing that. But
I know, like I'm like watching him. He's just like cranking that fucking thing just to put like a little charge in the battery just to get to start. Then rely on the alternator to do that. But the thing is, the alternator is getting wear on it too because it's keep pushing all that energy.
Yeah, you're actually killing your alternator by doing that because you're causing too much of a draw. It overtaxes your generator because it's trying to do everything.
Yeah, very much.
I think we really should do some more research into like that ocean technology though, because so far I've only seen one company doing it. I'm sure there are multiple companies, but I've only seen the videos on one. And it's an interesting technology. I just think that it needs a little more work.
It's an expensive technology. That's what it is because you have to drill. You literally have to get into the the ocean ground, right? For the top, then you have to have the floaters on top to move around. Then they had to put the line into underneath there to go into the shore, and like take it all the way to the energy.
I mean, company.
That's a lot of money, and a lot of companies don't want to do that. They're just like, oh, we'll just rely on on something cheaper like solar. Solar is cheaper.
It is getting cheaper and more efficient as time goes on. I said earlier that 4 years. They're trying to get it down to the point where it's efficient enough that it actually pays for itself in 1 year.
Yeah, I think,
and that would put it at like almost 90% uptime for net positive versus its current situation.
And I feel like with the whole the tie thing that you're talking about, I feel like that's going to be like another whole oil company, scheme where they, like, oh, well, we're going to up the, payment on electrical, through this tide because we're not getting enough tide. It's just going to try to make more money.
I'm not sure I follow exactly what you're trying to say, but I get the idea of it. Somebody's going to try to.
I mean, they're like, we spent the money to drill into the ground of the ocean, just to put the stuff in there. They're going to be like, well, now you can rely on us.
Okay, that doesn't sound necessarily that bad, although having greedy people in charge of it is probably not the best. But if they're gonna find a way to make money from something else that isn't fossil fuels, that would be a net positive for people. Sure, there's negatives because greedy people are in charge of it, but it'll
take years before, they would.
That's probably where I think the biggest problem would be is they would invest in it and install it to death.
Yeah, I mean, it could.
I feel like that happens with a lot of technologies is that somebody comes up with a great idea and then they get bought out by a bigger corporation and that corporation just kills it. At this point, we're going on conspiracy theories about big corporations and the death of big oil that isn't happening.
We could talk about that on the next podcast.
Possibly. I know a couple people that would probably go along with that and talk about it.
You know what? We're going to do that on the next podcast. I like that. We're going to talk about big corporations and how they became greedy. This is going to be a good one because we're going to talk about Disney. We're going to talk about, these big corporations.
Ooh, Disney.
BP. Disney. We're going to talk about everything about the next one.
All right.
You want to do that?
Sure. Why not?
All right. Well, thank you for watching our podcast. I'm Willie.
I'm CRollur. Peace.
Fuck, my fucking electric bill is like so fucking high.